I'm Luke Doonan and I grew up on a council estate, so I know firsthand what a difference social housing can make. But today in the UK there's a chronic shortage of affordable housing.
When I was a kid, we had council houses, you had it for life, you stayed in there for life. But at the moment, they're selling them off.
I think waiting lists are unmanageable at the moment.
I think it is going to be a crisis, and I think it will become more and more of a crisis.
And making things even worse, some tenants are abusing the system and making a small fortune through unlawfully subletting their council properties.
Making money from something that's supposed to help people save money, that's really bad.
They're trying to scrounge off the government and it's wrong.
They should be fined and the property should certainly be taken away from them and given to somebody more deserving.
In this series, I'll be joining housing fraud investigators out on the streets.
I've banged on the door, I've looked through the letterbox.
As they crack down on tenancy cheats.
Hello, it's Michael Frost from Fraud.
Reclaim the properties.
The final outcome is that we were given immediate possession.
And give them to families in genuine need.
It's clear to me that whatever you're faced with, you're just simply not going to give up, are you?
No, I won't.
Good for you.
This is Council House Crackdown. Today we're pounding the streets, making sure lawful tenants are actually living where they should be.
You visiting at the moment?
No, I actually live here.
We uncover a case of unlawful subletting which left not one but two victims out of pocket.
He was not aware it was a council property. He was quite upset that he had paid a lot of money.
And learn firsthand just how difficult the job can be for social housing investigators. Tenancy fraud costs the public purse nearly £2 billion a year. And on the front line, tackling this problem firsthand is an army of 44,000 skilled social housing officers. Housing officers are the familiar faces on our social housing scene. They're the first point of contact for any issues and a crucial link between tenants and their landlords. But as the eyes and the ears on the ground, they're also the first line of defence when it comes to cracking down on unlawful subletting. Today, Officer Ellen is heading out on patrol to knock on tenants' doors and see just who's been living where.
Today I'm going to be doing a lot of tenancy audits to verify that the person who is living in the property is actually the tenant. This is just random, it's unannounced, nobody knows that I'm coming, nobody knows that I'm in the area, and so we're just going to do cold calling, door-to-door knocking.
Not all social housing is found in tower blocks and on council estates. Ellen's patch covers a desirable South London area packed with period street properties. Just the sort that provide rich pickings for tenants on the take.
These properties in this area, they're like gold mines. They can be rented out to about £1,000 a month. And then when they're only paying about maybe £400 or £500, the profit can be very, very high.
Knocking on doors to see who's actually living there can be very effective. Today, Ellen has a list of over 150 properties to visit.
On this road in particular, we've actually found 3 people who have been subletting. And the reason why we found out about that is just by me merely doing a tenancy audit. Doesn't seem to be anybody at home at the moment, so we'll just go on to the next property.
Catching people in isn't always easy, but it's not long before Ellen's suspicions are raised.
I can hear music, but nobody's actually answering the door. Ah, we have someone coming to the door. Hello, hi, my name's Ellen Lamont from Viridian Housing. Okay, I'm here to do a tenancy audit. Is Miss... She's not here at the moment. Okay, all right, so I'll have to leave that. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. All right, bye.
With the tenant not at home, there's a limit to what Ellen can do, but she has no intention of giving up.
So what's just happened there is that I'm not able to go into the property because the actual person wasn't there. However, I may just have to just double check with the fraud investigators to just see if there's anything suspicious going on there. Not seem to be having much luck at the moment. If you don't succeed today, then you try again another time when you're out on visits, and that's exactly what I do. I just continuously keep trying.
Ellen doesn't give up, and her persistence is about to pay off.
Somebody's opened the door. Hi, good afternoon. My name's Ellen Lamont from Viridian Housing.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
You're flat one?
Yeah.
Okay, you're Mr.
No, I'm actually Mr. Little. I'm still waiting to be put back down on the housing.
Okay, so are you visiting at the moment?
No, I actually live here.
Okay, so where's Mr. Oh, Miss. Sorry.
She's not here at the moment.
Oh, okay, so, but you're living here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but no one's actually come back about me signing a new tenancy agreement.
You wouldn't sign a new tenancy agreement because it would be in the name of... If you can just ask her to contact her office, then I'll be able to discuss it further with her.
Yeah, okay.
All right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
All right then,
Yeah.
thank you. All right then, bye.
It's a confusing situation. Ellen will now have to establish the relationship between the man who answered the door and the lawful tenant.
It could well be that he may be the partner, but she may not want him down as a joint tenant. You just don't know, and you can't judge until you go back and you have your evidence and you do your groundwork.
For Ellen, finding 2 leads to investigate may have taken all day, but in the ongoing battle to combat tenancy fraud, it's time well spent.
It's not a wasted day. The only way we're going to find out is just to hit the ground and just do a lot of walking, keep knocking the doors. If you're not successful, then you try again.
The efforts of housing officers like Ellen are paying off. In the past 5 years, tenancy fraud detection has increased by 92%, with over 2,000 properties being reclaimed last year in London, and over 1,000 in regions further afield. That's a potential saving of over £50 million.
There should be like huge fines because there's such a shortage of housing and people are living in such terrible conditions.
The sheer fact that you are subletting it is saying you weren't needy of it. So why are you taking something that really somebody else genuinely needs?
It's stopping people that are genuine, that really need flats, from getting flats.
Across the country, housing fraud investigators are working tirelessly to deal with unlawful subletting, getting out on the streets in the pursuit of truth.
Hi Nico, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. Nice to meet you.
You too. Should we?
And it was during a tenancy audit back in 2014 that Nico, a housing officer in Southend, Essex, spotted something that raised her suspicions.
So Nico, this is your housing patch, is it?
This is my area.
Okay, and how many flats do you look after or properties in this area?
It's about 500.
It's Nico's job to monitor the properties around this beachy area of town.
You really get to know the people around your area, who's around, who's moving in, who's moving out, who's not meant to be there as well.
And when she started checking on her properties, one flat stood out.
So, do you remember the first time that this case came to your attention?
It was a random property inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Very random, wasn't planned. I just picked that property to go and inspect. Went from there.
So, this is the block here?
Yep, this is the block here.
Wow, it's about 500 metres from the sea?
Yep, not far at all.
Although Nico's visit was random, it gave her an opportunity to check on the well-being of one of the tenants living here.
We were aware of the tenant's circumstances, that she was in quite ill health and that she'd been back and forth to hospital a couple of times recently, so we wanted to make sure she was okay.
So it sounds like, as well as doing your tenancy check, you're actually checking that your tenant is okay if she hasn't been well?
Of course.
But despite making an appointment, Nico's visit didn't go according to plan.
On that first occasion, when you came here, what happened?
couldn't get in, there was no answer.
Were you frustrated, or is that just run-of-the-mill kind of thing?
It happens more often than you think, unfortunately. There's a lot of people that don't keep to their appointments.
Okay, and then you make the second appointment and you come out.
Yep.
What happened then?
No answer. We hadn't had a call back since the first visit, so that's when you start thinking something's not quite right.
Over the next 5 months, Nico made another 10 visits to the property, but each time no one was in.
I mean, that must be frustrating.
That's incredibly frustrating, especially when you're out most days seeing people all the time, and then you come somewhere 10, 12 times and you never see them.
After so many visits, Nico was starting to suspect that nobody was actually living at the property.
So when you handed the case over to your fraud department, did you think there's something going on here?
Definitely.
And today, Nico's conclusions about the property are about to be put to the test. Fraud investigator Mike has taken over the case and is determined to track down the missing tenant. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Morning, yeah, good, thank you.
So tell me why we're here this morning.
This morning we're investigating a case against one of our tenants. We believe that our tenant should be living in a council property that's been given to her, and we believe that she's not using it as her main and principal home.
At this early hour, Mike plans to catch the tenant unawares. By knocking at the flat he suspects she's staying in, while sending his colleague Sean to knock at her council property at precisely the same time.
He'll ask the same questions, so we should hopefully come up with the same answer, or at least the facts anyway.
The benefit of being here really early is that 9 times out of 10 we'll normally find somebody in the property.
But, as with most cases of this kind, neither investigator knows for certain what's waiting for them behind closed doors.
My gut feeling says yes, she's at this property, and that's what we'll find. We'll get her there, but my gut feeling has told me that before, and it's been completely wrong.
As the team move into position, it's a tense moment.
I normally get a little bit apprehensive. You never know what you're going to find at the property. Today is a crunch moment.
As you get closer to a door knock like this, do you feel apprehensive? Do you feel a bit scared even, maybe?
It's obviously the not knowing what's behind the door that scares me or worries me, put it that way. I'm standing off outside the property at the moment. Are you guys ready to go?
Okay, roger that. Yeah, I'm standing outside the property now.
Okay, roger, we're going to be knocking.
Good morning to the council. Can you open the door, please?
As expected, there's no one in the council flat.
Doesn't look like anybody's home. It looks like the property's empty. I can see a few bits of furniture, but that's about it. I can't see anything else.
But it looks like there is someone in at the second address.
Can you open the door, please? There we go, somebody's come to the window.
We'll find out later whether Mike finds the missing tenant. Tenancy fraud investigations rely on relationships. Whether it's information from the public or assistance from other agencies, cooperation is key. In Cambridgeshire, data sharing led to the recovery of 25 properties worth almost £4 million. And in Bristol, 106 cases would have slipped through the net had it not been for a tip-off email address and a hotline.
Even though the economic situation is on the rise, people still find it quite difficult to get a job. So because of that, social housing is obviously more in need than what it would be if people would be able to afford and maybe get a mortgage.
I'm living in a 2-bedroom with my four children and my wife and myself, six people in 2-bedroom.
I've lived in London all my life. I was born and brought up in London, and I now can no longer afford to live here.
When it comes to social housing, unlawful subletting is just one of the problems that tenancy fraud officers look out for. In 2013, fraud officer Pamela was investigating a case that started off as a straightforward noise complaint, but it turned out to be something much bigger.
My job entails going out on visits a lot. Sometimes we could be knocking on doors at about 7 in the morning. Sometimes we do it really late, and we only do that to try and get the tenants in. I think a lot of the tenants find they're quite surprised to see council officers knocking on their doors that early in the morning or late in the evening. But it's a good way to establish residency.
Pamela had received a report from a colleague who had concerns about a property on her patch.
The tenancy enforcement officer had visited the property because of noise nuisance complaints. When she got to this property, she was suspicious that the property was sublet.
Pamela was hoping to find out who was behind all the racket.
We knocked on the door and the neighbour above opened the door. There's a communal entry door to the flats within the property. She informed us that the tenant was in fact in Jamaica, but her son is often seen in the property. Well, at that point, I had got a first confirmation that the tenant was not in the country, which was what I needed.
Pamela returned to the office to investigate further.
On checking the system, I realized that the tenant's son was a person who was coming into the office and dealing with the tenant's affairs. All the tenancy issues were being dealt with by the tenant's son. That kind of sent red flags going.
The question now was whether this was a case of unlawful subletting or just a parent passing their property on to the next generation. But in the eyes of the law, neither is acceptable.
A lot of people would think that it's all right to leave siblings or children in a property, but they must remember that at some point they had needs, specific needs. That's why they were given the council property. If their circumstances change, they are required to notify the housing office and obviously either downsize or give the property back.
Determined to get to the bottom of what was going on, Pamela returned for a second visit. And this time, she found somebody at home.
Second time, I visited the property early in the morning with one of my colleagues. We met the tenant's son. When we got into the property, we could see that there were two other people there. One of them, we interviewed him. He was not aware it was a council property. He was quite upset that he had paid a lot of money for a council property. The second person we saw in the property, he told us that he had found the advert on the internet, called up the person named on the advert and paid £750 deposit and was paying £650 per month for the room.
Both subtenants were happy to make witness statements saying that they were paying rent, but they had no idea it was a council flat. The case was falling into place, but Pamela had one more question for the tenant's son.
I asked him why he was subletting the property. He stated that he had to pay the bills, but rent being paid for this two-bed council property is nowhere near the income being generated from the subletting.
With the council's rent for this property set at £530 per month, and the tenant's son raking in £1,400 from subletters, he was doing a lot more than covering the rent. And a few weeks later, Pamela took the case to civil court.
The courts awarded us possession of the property, so we're really pleased we got it back.
With the property back in Lambeth Council's hands, Pamela's work was done. But for her colleague Janet, it was just beginning. Before the property could be allocated to a new family, it needed to be assessed.
In my role, When properties come and become void, we look at it, we do a proper specification, make sure we deal with structural issues, and make sure it's brought to lettable standard. When somebody goes in there, they're happy and it's clean.
But in this instance, that was a big job.
I mean, the property was in such a state. This is just where you can see where they've bags of rubbish just littered, and you can see where there's glass being broken, windows being broken, lots of rubbish to be cleared. There's a lot of work. A new kitchen to be fitted. We're going to have to put a decent bathroom in there. The whole place needed decorating, all sorts.
And Janet knows it's important to get properties like this one back in use as quickly as possible.
There's about 20,000 people waiting on the waiting list for one of our properties. There's a lot of people that's in an overcrowding situation that needs to be housed. So there's a various range of people that we need to facilitate.
Today, Janet's going back to see the results of her team's hard work.
We're going to show you around the home where we've done all the repairs. You've seen the before pictures and now you're going to see the aftermath.
And after weeks of hard graft, despite the mess unlawful subletters left behind, Janet and her team were able to get a new family rehomed in the property who had been in genuine need.
This is really a success. I'm pleased.
It's another success against the subletters.
Had this property not become vacant at that time, this family wouldn't have benefited, and the residents were really happy in there.
It's good job satisfaction there that we got a property back and it's been given to someone who's more deserving.
There are over 4 million social housing properties in England. 2.6 million of these are owned by private, non-profit organisations known as housing associations, whereas just 1.6 million are council properties. So in 2013, when a new law made subletting social housing a criminal offence, housing associations and councils across the country joined forces to tackle the problem together.
Well, as homeless people, you haven't got anywhere to live, so renting it out to make yourself a bit of cash, that's not fair.
They should be taken to places like where I live in hostels and showing the people that are missing out.
Making vast amounts of money from renting out properties that they don't own, I fundamentally disagree with that because I think it has a lot of knock-on social problems for that.
Viridian Housing Association, with 18,000 homes in London, the Midlands and West Sussex, has been at the forefront of the fight against tenancy fraud. Solicitor Steve Scully is part of the Housing Association's legal team.
Before the Prevention of Social Housing Fraud Act came into force in 2013, we were already getting judgments against people for unlawful profits. So we're quite keen on rooting them out because they're effectively blocking social housing from people who really need it. There are far more people waiting for places on local authority housing lists than there are places to give them.
In the last 4 years, Viridian has reclaimed 300 properties thanks to its team of fraud investigators. Katrina is head of legal services at Viridian. She also chairs the National Tenancy Fraud Forum.
The Tenancy Fraud Forum has changed the fight against tenancy fraud because what it has done is made sure that social landlords work together in partnership. So take an area like Birmingham, for example, all of the housing associations there will work very closely with the local authority there, sharing information, tracking people down, going on joint investigations with each other.
Katrina says this new way of working, combined with new laws making unlawful subletting a criminal offence, will have a huge impact.
If anyone's watching this and thinks they can get away with tenancy fraud, then they need to wake up and smell the coffee. Not only will they get a substantial fine, they will also get a conviction for fraud and they could end in prison for 2 years. We will continue to work, we will continue to gain new skills, we will get the involvement of the police now that it is a criminal offence, and we will continue to combat it. We will put a stop to tenancy fraud.
But some tenancy cheats are harder to track down than others. Viridian started one investigation 8 years ago.
The first thing that happened was that somebody went on a routine visit and established that she had done some maintenance on the property, but instead of asking us to do it, she involved private contractors, which seemed like a slightly odd thing. It's one of the indicators that there might be something adrift.
Many people who unlawfully sublet don't want council contractors in their home, in case they spot something that makes them suspicious and report back.
Thereafter, she often wasn't there, but it took a while to come up with sufficient proof. The investigation was really down to our in-house fraud officers, who were good at finding out all sorts.
We're protecting the identity of this fraud officer because of future undercover work.
The case first came about, say, about 2007. There were suspicions regarding possible subletting. We've been actually looking at it since then, on and off. It's really unusual to have cases last this long.
The tenant had an authorised lodger, but the suspicion was that she was now actually living elsewhere and by default subletting her housing association flat in London. But getting the evidence was proving difficult.
Part of the reason it was so hard was that when we did our normal searches, whether it was credit searches and other open source inquiries, she would be at the address, so the paper evidence put her at the actual address. So she'd have her council tax in the name, she'd have various utilities in her name. So on paper, we had absolutely no evidence to put her anywhere else.
Searches on social media showed the tenant was working as a singer and that she regularly performed in one particular area in the south of France.
We established that the tenant was a singer and that she was appearing regularly in France.
She had a stage name which she used, and there was a lot of advertising. We saw that she was almost on a weekly basis that she was there. So when she was telling us that she's never away for more than 28 days, it was just starting to raise more further questions.
We could see when she had concerts or when she was performing, but we couldn't get an address. And she was very careful not to put an address on any social media sites.
Despite questioning the tenant on numerous occasions, she continued to insist that the flat in London was her main home.
It was extremely frustrating because she completely, on every occasion, would say, no, I am back in the country, this is my main and principal home. And it was frustrating because we didn't have anything else other than her dates of her gigs out there. And all our paper evidence here pointed to her being in our property.
She was always throwing in complaints about disrepair or about the treatment that we were giving her in terms of the letters that we'd written to her asking for information. She went to the Housing Ombudsman to complain in late 2014, so we had a whole lot of correspondence with the Housing Ombudsman.
I felt I knew her really well, having spent so much time looking at her profile and watching her perform on YouTube. I felt I knew her personally.
It was time to pay the tenant a personal visit, a decision that led to the breakthrough they'd all been hoping for.
It was just like, wow, this was like the key that was going to unlock the door.
We'll be back later to find out what happened next. In 2008, a survey found that more than 50% of all new housing association tenants were classified as vulnerable, whether due to their health, their domestic setup, their social or financial needs. It's a vast number, but it's estimated that many more tenants could be suffering in silence. And that's where a housing officer's vigilance can really make a difference.
I work with a lot of young people who have issues around homelessness and vulnerable housing, and it's often very difficult to find them something.
Well, at the moment I live in supported housing for under 25s, and it's just for people, vulnerable people, a lot of people that have moved out of their mum's house.
Those people are the people that are going to be sleeping rough otherwise, because they don't have anywhere else to go. They don't have a family that they can go live with, etc. And it's those people I don't want to see out on the street come winter.
Back in Southend, investigators are trying to track down a council tenant who hasn't been seen for months.
So roughly how many unannounced visits would you do and what kind of time period?
I think for this case there was probably about 10
Wow.
between myself and my colleagues.
They suspect she's staying at another address a few miles away. So today, together with investigator Mike, I'm doing an early morning visit to check if anyone's home.
Oh, can you open the door, please? There we go, somebody's come to the window.
Okay. It sounds like there's someone about to open the door.
I'm Michael Frost from the Fraud Investigation Team at Southend. Right, I'm looking for a lady by the name of Mangalisile Shazi.
Yeah, Selena's upstairs.
Right, can I speak to her, please? I need to ask her a couple of questions.
Tango Charlie 33, Tango Charlie 33, Hotel 13.
Go 13.
Yeah, I'm at and the subject is in this property at the moment.
But as Mike goes inside, he's confronted by a domestic crisis, so I decide to hang back. I think we've just entered a very delicate situation where it seems that the lady is here, but she's not very well at all. And I don't think she can actually get up at the moment. The family grants us permission to film Mike's visit.
I've got 2 kids here, she's dying of cancer. I'm absolutely fuming that you've knocked here. She wouldn't even be involved in a fraud, so I don't even know why
if you
you're
just calm
here.
yourself down, man, and understand exactly what we're doing and why we're doing and listen to us, you'll probably
She's
understand.
only just come out of hospital.
It's a shocking discovery. The tenant is seriously ill. And Mike knows his first priority now is to find a way to help.
I'm offering you some help and I'm offering you a hand, and I need to know your circumstances. Okay?
In the midst of the chaos, Mike must now try to understand why the tenant is sleeping on a relative's floor as her property lies vacant.
Okay, Mrs. Shazi?
Yeah.
Who is currently in your property at the moment in...
Yeah,
Who is currently in your property there?
it's me.
No, who is living there at the property at the moment?
At the moment, it's just me who's living there. I just went to hospital. So, yes, I came from hospital yesterday. They say, since I'm not well, I must just stay with my daughter-in-law for a short time. You know, once I feel better, I go back to my property.
With the tenant claiming she is just a temporary house guest, the situation is far from clear.
Right, can I just ask you how long genuinely Mrs. Shazi has been living with you, please?
She was staying with me for a while. Last year, September, she moved in. And then when the council called her and asked her to go back home, she did actually leave here. And she went back home. And then obviously she come up again Saturday because she does come and see the grandchildren.
What is clear is that there's an urgent need for social care.
I can let the council know, and I'll let if Macmillan are looking after you, they will liaise and they will all put in a care package together for you guys all to be looked after. Okay.
She didn't want to give up the flat. It's her independence. That's the only thing that she has.
You obviously cannot live on your own, can you?
I do need help.
Mrs. Shazi's reluctance to admit how long she's lived here reveals a heartbreaking truth. She has been fighting the extent of her illness and the fact that she won't ever be returning to her flat. As this sad truth sinks in, Mike now understands exactly what needs to be done.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in place a care package now. And Mrs. Shazi, so I'm going to suggest for you the best way forward is to give the property up. It's going to be less hassle for you while you're sick, and encouraging you can stay and be warm with your daughters and your granddaughters. Okay. You want to do it that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been an emotional visit all round, but Mike knows that if he hadn't knocked this morning, the situation would have continued to worsen for this family.
Now, that situation for me, really upsetting because you've got someone who's really sick, but I can't think of another way you could have dealt with that. I mean, that lady just there, clearly not very well at all. She's got to be with family members. She couldn't even live in that property on her own.
Yes, and that's perfectly why, that's also why I explained to her, yes, I understand, you cannot live on your own. If you're saying you always need care, then the choice would be for you to either stay here with your daughter or to be moved to sheltered accommodation where you can be cared for. Right. I can now ensure that I will personally go and see social services. I will personally go and see him.
Which is fantastic.
And if that daughter is going to care for her long term, then why not house them in a decently sized house that can house the whole family, look after the kids as well, and they'll be happier and more comfortable in the situation. So there's been a social need that we've now helped. We're going to now help somebody else get into another house, and we're going to help them. Nice and easy.
This is community, isn't it? It's not just about knocking on doors and taking properties back off them.
No. I'll make sure that lady is as comfortable as she can be.
And although it's been a difficult morning for the family, when the dust settles, they too realise that Mike's visit was ultimately for the best.
It was hard to admit it because obviously the situation with her, it's heartbreaking, and obviously she didn't want to admit that she can't do things on her own. I'm hoping for a bigger property so I can take care of her. She has her own space, so if she wants to sleep all day, the kids won't disturb her if she's in her own bedroom. And obviously I'm hoping the kids can have their own room and not camp out in the front room. I would have told the council eventually, until she wanted to give it up. There's nothing else I could have done about it, to be honest. She gets the best help that she can, and hopefully she's happier.
For now, Mrs. Shazi is still living with her daughter-in-law under the watchful eye of Southend's social care team. But the family are hoping to move somewhere larger soon. And in the meantime, Mrs. Shazi's vacant council flat has become home to someone in desperate need of housing. Tracking down tenancy fraudsters can take investigations beyond British shores. A housing association tenant in Roehampton, who told officers she was living with a friend after complications with childbirth, was later found to be married and living with her husband and child in Abu Dhabi. And another tenant was discovered living in Malta whilst unlawfully subletting her 3-bedroom property to her son.
The council house is for people who need houses to live here. So if they're not here, then they shouldn't have that house.
I've just moved back to my parents because I can't afford to rent privately at the moment, and to get on the waiting list for the council, they just don't want to know.
Well, people like myself who've got a working partner and a little girl need somewhere to rent that's cheaper than renting privately, because it costs a fortune.
Back in South London, where Viridian Housing Association is convinced one tenant had been subletting her flat while living and working as a singer in the south of France.
It was extremely frustrating because she completely, on every occasion, would say, no, I am back in the country, this is my main and principal home.
Investigators knew for certain there were other people using the flat, but needed to establish who they were.
She was having other people live in the property, and particularly we believe there was one person that was living in the property who she wanted to class as a lodger. We also had neighbours who would tell us, we don't think she's here. We only ever see this other gentleman at the property and we never see the actual tenant. I think at some point she stopped completely living in the property and just came back to the property to use as a postal address, and basically the lodger then became the subtenant.
She decided the only way to get to the truth was to pay the tenant a personal visit.
It was very difficult to get our tenant in. She always requested appointments. She wouldn't let us visit unannounced. She showed me into the room where she was living or where she was, what she classed as a bedroom. And when you look at it, you wonder, well, why would you, if you were the main tenant of the property, live in the tiniest little room and let out the other room, the main bedroom? It's a house that's converted into 3 flats, and the one we were particularly interested in was the ground floor flat, which had access to a garden. I mean, this is a really sought after area.
It was after this visit that the tenant made her first big mistake.
She was extremely annoyed about my visit and the questions I asked. She thought they were too personal, and hence she put in a complaint, which we actually expected.
But the tenant signed the letter of complaint in a different name, one she hadn't used before. And when Viridian passed that name onto the French authorities, they hit the jackpot.
This is the letter that we sent to the HLM, asking them specifically whether she was a tenant of theirs, and also informing them of the various different names that we knew she went under. And this is their response, which is very short and sweet. It tells us that she's been a tenant of their social housing since 2012. Once we got that, we knew that she didn't have her main or principal residence in the UK.
When the letter came back confirming that she was a tenant since 2012, I think I jumped with joy at that point. The whole department was just like, brilliant, I think we've got it. And then we knew we had a fantastic case to take this to court.
I think if we'd got it wrong, she would have fought it, and we would have had solicitors' letters saying this is outrageous, whereas in fact, she came in with the keys. It's a great shame that we didn't catch her earlier, yeah. But we did eventually get there, and we're not likely to give up. Where we think someone is subletting, we'll carry on looking at it until we either find the proof or we decide that they're not subletting.
As for the flat in question, it's now back in use.
We have let this property to a young lady with a child who's really happy with the garden flat. She was ecstatic seeing the property when she saw it. She's been on a waiting list for a number of years and in temporary accommodation, which she said wasn't suitable for her young child. Getting results like this is a win-win for the organisation as well as the tenants who've been waiting on the list for years.
There's no reason really why organisations like housing associations should be here just to supply unlawful profits to people. We're actually here to house people, and that's what we're trying to do.
Rewarding cases like this show just how vital housing investigators are. They're getting social housing back to those in need and sending a clear message in the process that anyone found unlawfully subletting will be tracked down and will be caught, however long it takes.
Next, little and large, a London flat and a mid-terrace in Derbyshire going under the hammer. Then battered by huge waves, the fight to save a surfer's life, more close calls at 11. And later, the air hunters take on a case full of secrecy and scandal at 11:30 on BBC One.